Good evening, Baruchim Abayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class was sponsored by Ilu Nishmat Belo Bat Malka Tei Nafshat Tzroa B'Tzroa Chaim Began Eden Anyon Im Kol HaTzadikot VaChasidot Amen V'Amen. So let's talk some current events. Meaning Torah perspective on current events. I'm not in the news business. But the United States raised a large controversy in the world, which it's almost, somewhere between comical and sad that there would even be a discussion about this, over killing some Iranian terrorists a couple of weeks ago. And it stayed in the news for a while because God forbid to give Donald Trump some credit for something. So they turned killing a terrorist into a war crime practically. We believe, as God-fearing Jews, that there's nothing in this world that happens without a reason, and not only without a reason that directly has to do with us. Meaning, if something happened, down to the most trivial thing, 68 degrees weather on Sunday in the middle of the winter, there's a reason why that happened in New York, and it directly has to do with the Jewish community of New York, or worldwide. And the same thing with every tiny detail in the world. Some were lucky, the Chazal gave us the explanation close to 2,000 years ago. Others were not so lucky, so we don't understand what the messages are. But the ones that clearly stayed in Chazal, so at least we know what's going on and why. On the general subject of the Iranian regime, Chazal invested a very, very large amount of literature writing about it, in relative to other subjects. It's interesting. Some is known, some is less known. It's a very big, broad topic. I'm going to try and just touch on a little bit of it. If there'll be interest in the future, I'll pursue it further. Iran, in the way we know it today as the world's greatest harbor of terrorists and terror, and the world's greatest sponsor of terror, wasn't always like that. Number one, Iran historically, the Iranians historically, for a while didn't exist at all. It's a reignited country. But besides for that, at the end, up until the end of the 70s, more or less, Israel was actually on very good terms with Iran. As crazy as that sounds. They even had trade deals. They did a lot of things together. There's ammunition that exists in Iran today that was bought from Israel at the beginning of the 70s. Hard to believe. But there were all different interests that Israel had in Iran back in the day. So this current conflict of the past, let's say 40 years or so, is not the way it always was historically, and technically in theory wouldn't be the way it has to be. The world at large also had a massive transition in its priority of issues, which can be argued when it was triggered, but definitely the final point of its trigger was 9/11. Those of you who are old enough to remember the way an airport looked before 9/11, it was actually a fun experience. You went, it was pretty smooth and quick, and it was nice, and you enjoyed, and you were even able to go stand out or sit out and watch planes take off, and it was exciting for kids and everything else. And today, aviation became a nightmare because take off your shoes and take off your belt and this and that and the other and everything, and everybody's living in fear and phobia. And thank God we don't have issues. It's a very safe means of travel, but there's still the underlying fear of something going wrong. Meaning an act of Muslim terrorists was able to change the face of the world forever. It's never going to go back. It's never going to revert back to the old way. If anything, the government just invests more and more and more money in security. Israel, which is what we care about most, the majority of their budget goes to defense. It's a country that's always at war, even when they're not officially at war. Currently, that the Israeli government publicizes, God knows what they know that they don't publicize, not to put panic in the country. They are aware of over 130,000 missiles that are ready facing Israel, whether it's in Lebanon, Syria, and other places. Lebanon is one of the big strongholds by the Hezbollah. To wipe out Israel, you don't even need 1% of those missiles. And they're on constant guard and constant operation and have a very sophisticated military at a huge budget and a huge expense in order to do their part in keeping their country safe. For a while, the world thought that it doesn't have to be that way. Clinton tried to impose some sort of peace treaty which was supposed to make the Arabs love us suddenly, and all different other things. The Europeans a few years ago signed a deal with Iran thinking that was going to solve some sort of problem. Just created another great monster. But the reality has proven that the face of the world has changed under Muslim regimes that directly harbor, sponsor, and promote terror in all different ways. In a simple YouTube search, you can see many, many videos of Palestinian schools teaching kids when they're 3, 4, 5 years old chants in Arabic, death to Israel. And now they added on death to America too, because they don't like Trump that much. These kids are born being educated that their purpose in life is to die like what they call a shaheed, a martyr. The kid is growing up in school, and his teacher, instead of teaching him the value of life, is teaching him the value of death. Insanity. So the Torah predicted all this in advance, and there's actually a reason behind it. It's not just random coincidences. So we're going to try and gain a lot of knowledge in why things happen and how they affect us. In Breshit Perek Tetvav Pasuk Aleph, and I want to give credit to where credit's due, the vast majority of what I'm going to say tonight, the sources were given to me by a rabbi who's older than me, a very, very dear friend, Rav Mordechai Neugershel from Israel. Hashem should watch over him. He should be happy and healthy forever. I say forever because Mashiach will come before he hits 120, so it'll be forever. And I thank him greatly from the depths of my heart for assisting so much in a complex subject, which is one of his areas of expertise. So the Torah says in Breshit Tetvav Aleph, "V'hinei ima chashecha gdola nofelet alav." And behold, there was like some sort of dark fear, great dark fear, that fell on him. So the Midrash says, what's the fear? What's dark? Who did it fall on? What's the Torah talking about? So the Midrash says like this. There's a Midrash in Tehillim in Mizmor Nun Bet. I'm giving all the sources so you see that we don't say anything from ourselves. The Midrash says, V'hinei ima chashecha gdola. Eima zu Bavel. Eima is referring to the Babylonians. Chashecha, darkness, zu Yavan. That's the Greeks. Gdola, great, zu Madai. Nofelet alav, zu Edom. Edom we refer to as Western civilization today, and historically mainly the Christians throughout the world. What the Midrash is saying is, Avraham Avinu had a fear of 4 tough situations that his children, the Jewish nation, are going to be put through throughout their history, which he titled the 4 exiles. Chazal teach us that God came to them and gave them a choice. That the Jews have to suffer for whatever reason, and either they could suffer through exiles or they could suffer in other ways. And Avraham Avinu made the choice that the lesser of the evils was to suffer through exiles. And these were the 4 exiles that he chose for his children. Part 1. And that's why probably every child that was raised in a yeshiva knows that Am Yisrael went through or is going through 4 galuyot, the 4 exiles that we went through. Again, in short, Bavel, the Babylonian exile, Yavan, the Greeks, Edom, which is Paras and Edom. Edom is the one that we know most. That's the one that we're in right now. Or at least on a shallow level, that's what we think. The Babylonians destroyed the first temple. That was Galut Bavel. There was a temple. Am Yisrael was living a very safe, secure, and pleasant life during that era historically overall. And the Babylonians came and destroyed the first temple and exiled the Jews from Israel for a period of time. Then came what we call Galut Paras, the exile of the Persians. It's not the Persians of today. They inherited the empire of the Babylonians, and in the story of Megillat Esther was when they went on their big campaign to once again take it up with the Jews, like it says in Esther, the 3rd chapter, Pasuk Yud Gimel, that they wanted lahashmid, laharog, ula'abed et kol ha'Yehudim, to wipe out the entire Jewish nation, minar vad zaken, from the youngest to the oldest, taf v'nashim, even women and children, biyom echad, all in one day, u'shalalam navoz, and to steal their money as well. And in memory or in celebration of us being saved from Galut Paras, from that exile, we celebrate the holiday of Purim. That's what we have until today, the holiday of Purim, a holiday that's here to stay. Yavan, the Greeks, Chazal say, we spoke about this before Chanukah, Shichshicha et enehem v'libam shel Yisrael. They darkened the hearts and the eyes of the Jewish nation, meaning they went after the spiritual elements of Am Yisrael. And what they tried to do is, as we say in the prayer of Al Anisim, lahashkicham toratecha u'la'aviram michukei retzonecha, to make the Jews forget the Torah and to stop keeping the mitzvot. The Chashmonaim went to war with them, they won, and from there was born our wonderful holiday of Chanukah that we just recently celebrated. Edom is the long one. There was no quick war, no quick victory. Edom started with destroying the second temple. That's where their agenda began. We're talking about close to 2,000 years ago. As a result, Al Na'arot Bavel Shem Yashavnu Gam Bachinu B'Zocheinu Etzion, we lost Zion, we mourn until today the destruction of the temple, and we were exiled from Israel. We got spread out Be'arba kanfot haaretz, in the 4 corners of the world. Wherever you go in the world, you're going to find a Jew, whether you like it or not. There's no way that you don't. Not only a Jew, you'll find a Chabad house too, probably. It's an amazing thing. But it's an exile. And it's an exile that we have no celebration of its victory. It's not like Purim, that there was a turnover of an Alfochu, and now we have Purim. Or Chanukah, that the Maccabim went in and took care of the problem, and now we have Chanukah. We don't have a holiday for this exile. Meaning we're paying the price for this exile until today. This was predicted by the Gemara. The Gemara says in Yuma Daf Tet Amud Bet, Rishonim shenitgala avonam nitgala kitzam. The first exiles, that the sin was clear, so the end of the problem was clear too. They resolved the issue of the sin. Like for example in Paras, Lech kenos et kol ha'Yehudim v'tzumu alai, they fasted for 3 days, they repented their ways, and they had a miracle. Achronim shelo nitgala avonam. The latter, the last exile, that the sins weren't revealed, even though the Gemara does say what sins the temple was destroyed for, but it seems like it was just more than that. Lo nitgala kitzam, the day of redemption was not revealed either. We had just learned the Chazal in the last parasha that when Yaakov Avinu called his sons together to bless them or speak to them before he died, he wanted Bikesh Yaakov legalot et haketz. Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal the day of redemption. Rashi brings down Chazal, and then Hashem took away the Shekhinah from him. Otherwise known as, he told them, no, you're not allowed to reveal to them when their redemption is going to be. The Maharal explains, if somebody's not well, let's say he has the flu. The flu is very common in New York in the past couple of weeks. So it's not pleasant, it's not a lot of fun. I did it myself. But the doctor tells you a week, 10 days, you drink some fluids, you take some Tamiflu, some other things, you'll be all right. So it's not pleasant, but it's not the end of the world. But if somebody's sick with an illness that he doesn't know if he'll ever get out of, it's so much harder to cope with. Because there's no end date. There's nothing to look forward to. It's almost like a hopeless cause. So if you have an exile, it's for 70 years, even though the 70 years may be the worst. But at least there's a deadline. You know, in 70 years, it's over. Gala avonam itgala kitzam. But if there's an exile that the date is so far away, people give up. They can't hold on so long anymore. Somebody has decided that he wants to go on a diet. Not a bad idea. Nothing to do with weight loss, for health reasons. And one of his things on his diet is he's stopping to eat junk food. Really bad example, sitting here drinking soda, but whatever. And then he gets this mad craving for, I don't know, whatever he likes, milkshake. 10 o'clock in the morning. So, if he says, not going to happen, he might control himself 1 day, 2 days, but day 3 he's going to already find an excuse to break it. Once it's because it's my birthday, the next day it's because it's my anniversary, the third time it's because Lilu Nishmat somebody, the fourth day he's going to kill himself, Lilu Nishmat. But whatever, just, something. But if the same person, not that this would work medically, but in theory, would decide that from 9 to 11 every morning I'm not drinking milkshakes. So even if he has a crazy craving at 9 o'clock in the morning to drink a milkshake, big deal, I'll wait 2 hours. What's the difference? One doesn't have a deadline, so there's no light at the end of the tunnel. The other one does. That's the way life works. Most of us probably don't love our jobs, because jobs are not meant to love, unlike what the common belief is. But we still survive our day and we're not depressed and everything's all right. Why? Because at 5 o'clock it's over and life goes on. And it's at the end of the week we get a good paycheck. So it's worth it. But if a guy doesn't have hours and everything's around the clock and there's no beginning and no end, that's a job that's not going to work too long unless the compensation is very, very high that it bribes him enough. Because enough, I also want a life. There has to be an end to something you don't like. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw Yaakov Avinu wants to reveal the date, he said the date's so far away, the Jews are going to give up in advance, there'll be no Jewish nation. So he went and took away the ability of him to reveal the date of Mashiach coming in order for Jews to be able to have Achakelo b'chol yom she'avot, to wait every day saying maybe today Mashiach will come. So at that point the wait is not so long because it could happen this minute. And that gives us the emotional energy to hold on. That was the idea behind it, at least based on the Maharal's teachings. Almost 2,000 years, we're in an exile which we all perceive as Galut Edom, the exile of Edom, which we're waiting inshallah shall be very soon, that it should change to the good. This idea is brought down in Chazal in many places in many ways, and it begins right in the first pasuk of the Torah. Who would think the first pasuk of the Torah would already be talking about exiles? The whole Torah starts with this. It means an exile is not just a punishment of sort. It's actually a purpose. There's a reason behind it. There's a benefit to it. Chazal teach us, the pasuk says, "Reshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, v'haaretz hayta tohu v'avohu v'choshech al pnei tehom." Sorry, the second pasuk in Chumash. Hashem creates the world, v'haaretz hayta tohu v'avohu v'choshech al pnei tehom. So Chazal teach us an interesting thing. What's tohu v'avohu v'choshech al pnei tehom? Come Chazal say tohu zu malchut Bavel. The word tohu, desolate, that's the Babylonian exile. And we bring a pasuk from Yirmiyah, Ra'iti ta'aretz v'inei tohu. When Yirmiyah Navi was talking about the exile in Yirmiyah Perek Dalet, pasuk Chav Gimel, so Yirmiyah called the exile tohu. V'avohu zu malchut Madai. That's Paras u'Madai is the same thing. That's Galut Paras, the story of Purim. Where the Midrash brings a source. Vayavilu la'avi et Haman. V'avohu vayavilu. So you see that's that exile. That's in Esther Perek Zayin. Perek Vav, probably actually. V'choshech, darkness, zu malchut Yavan, the exile of the Greeks. Shayu gzerotehem kashot, because their decrees were very harsh. As it says, kitvu al keren hashor she'en lachem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. Meaning, train your babies from the time they're born that they should be atheists. Al pnei tehom, hovering over the depths, zu malchut Edom harisha. Same idea in Chazal, just a different source. We take a source, 4 things, 4 exiles, same 4 exiles, including the last one that we're going through. But what comes after that? So the pasuk continues after that. There's a psikta rabati. We stopped the pasuk, right? It says, the pasuk continues. V'ruach Elohim rachefet al hamayim. Comes the psikta and says, after you get through these 4 stages of exile, then we're going to get to a point of ruach Elohim merachefet al hamayim. What's this ruach, the spirit that's going to be hovering over the water? So the psikta writes, ruach Elohim merachefet zeh melech HaMashiach. That's Mashiach that's going to come to take the Jews out of the mess that they were in with the 4 exiles. That's what it says. V'nacha alav ruach Hashem. It's pasuk in Yeshaya Yud Aleph Chaf. That the Spirit of God is going to dwell on us. Ve'imatay merachefet al pnei hamayim. When's this Mashiach going to come? This is a psikta that everybody should know. Most of the times the Chazal quote the 4 exiles. It doesn't say what the solution is or when it's going to end. It just says the fact. We quoted from the Gemara before Yumatet that the Gemara says, "No nitgala kitzam." We don't know when it's going to end. The psikta says different. Ve'imatay. When's it going to happen? Merachefet al pnei hamayim, that this ruach Elokim that we called Melech HaMashiach is going to come. Shetishpechu, kishetishpechu, when you'll spill kamayim like water, libchem, your hearts, nochach pnei Hashem, in front of God. Anochi, anochi, hu menamchemchem. Then God says, when you spill your heart out to me, I will console you by bringing Mashiach. Which if you think about it is a frightening thought. If we're in exile for almost 2,000 years, that means we never accomplished praying properly for 2,000 years. Because if we would have, Mashiach would have come already. Because the psikta says, Eimatai, when's Mashiach going to come? When you're going to spill out your heart to me, so in return, I will give you the King Melech HaMashiach. And like this, Chazal go on and teach us from many psukim, this idea of different rulerships that we're going to be under and different situations that we're going to suffer from that are going to be these galuyot. Another example is in the pasuk in Bereshit that talks about the kings. Vayivi me'am Rafel melech Shinar, Elyoch melech Elasag, Tlav melech Elan, Tidal melech Goyim. So on that Chazal also say those are the 4 galuyot, 4 kings, 4 galuyot, and there are many other examples like that. By the way, maybe this is not politically correct, but I love things that aren't politically correct. There is another Chazal. And if you have an issue with the politically correctness, take it up with the Midrash Rabbah in Vayikra Parasha Yud Gimel Psikta Hey. The Midrash says, where's another source about the 4 exiles? And by the way, the reason why there's so many sources is because from each one we can learn something else, but that's for a different day. Et HaGamal, right, there's a pasuk that talks about the animals that aren't kosher. So one of them is a camel. Comes to Midrash and says, Et HaGamal zu Bavel. Those are the Babylonians, they're camels. Why? Ki ma'ale gerau. Because the truth is cut. And therefore what? Shegarra malchut achareh. It dragged another kingdom after it to follow its ways. Vet arnevet, the rabbit. Zu Yavan, those are the Greeks. Maybe that's why on the Greek cuisine, I don't know if they serve rabbits or not, but Chazal say that they resemble rabbits. Why? Ki ma'ale gera shegarra malchut achareh. Also, it's ma'ale gera. It dragged another one after it. Vet Shafan, Zu Madai, that's Galut Madai, the Persian exile that we had. Ki ma'ale gera shegarra malchut achareh, brought another exile after it. Vet Chazir, this is what's not so politically correct. And the pig, Zu Edom, that's the exile that we're in right now. The Western civilization. V'hu garo lo yigar sheino goreret malchut achareh. It's different in the way it chooses cut than the other animals, and it doesn't bring another exile after it. Maybe that's why America's favorite food is bacon. Because Galut Edom is ve'et achazir, the pig. And maybe that's why America suffers from obesity. Because we have a slang, I'm fat like a pig. And everything else that has to do with pigs. I'm pigging out. You know, ever heard anybody say that? Pigging out? That's the part of the exile of Malchut Edom. This whole way of living. Chazal said that almost 2,000 years ago in the Midrash. So yeah, maybe it's not politically correct. Take it up with them. I don't have to be more politically correct than the rabbis did 2,000 years ago. In Daniel, the prophet in the second chapter talks clearly about the exiles that the Jewish nation will go through. When he talks about the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, that he sees a tzelem mukav me'arba chalakim, and over there it says clearly. And once again, there's a resemblance in the four parts of this thing that he sees to the same idea. In summary, for this segment, we see clearly in Chazal that Chazal spent a lot of time using a lot of examples to show us that there will be 4 exiles, 3 that were gauged and will end up with celebration, 1 that is not gauged, we don't know its end, and that's called Malchut Edom, the exile of Edom, which we're in today, which is resembled by Tohu and a Chazir, a desolate pig. That's what we see. But is Galut Edom in its simplicity really the final exile? Or maybe there's more to it that we might be missing. So since, simply put, the way we quote it, I think that should be it, no? It sounds like it, and we definitely don't need more than that. But unfortunately, it seems like that it's not so simple. Malchut Edom is split into different stages in history. Titus went and destroyed the temple. Aspanius and his warriors went and brought a lot of suffering that came along with the destruction of the temple, as brought down in Masachet Gitin on the stories of the destruction of the temple and many Midrashim. As a result, the Jews got scattered around the world, and nothing great happened since. Just tens of years after the destruction of the Second Temple, came a terrible destruction on Beitar with all its problems, as the Gemara describes at length. And then from there, Jews never found peace in the world. We were always extremely successful and always persecuted throughout history. There was no nation historically that was persecuted as much as the Jewish nation. It doesn't exist. Try and find one. Study some history. And lasted. There were nations that were persecuted, but they were wiped out. But that was persecuted constantly, and not just in one area, simultaneously all over, and still lasted. We didn't really have much peace. But that comes from a pasuk. God promised in Dvarim Chavchet, Ubagoim ahem, and when you'll be scattered amongst those nations, Lo targia, you won't be calm, V'lo yeh manoach lekaf raglecha, and you won't find peace. No matter where you are, no matter what your situation is, God promises the Jewish nation you'll never find peace. It's a curse, no? So what are we, a cursed nation? We always thought we were the chosen nation. Based on this, it seems like we're the most cursed nation. Imagine you take a child before he's born, if hypothetically speaking, if it was possible, and you ask them, do you want to be born to the world? And he says, sure, I want to see what the world's like. And you tell him, but there's one condition. You'll always suffer from severe anxiety. You'll never have a moment of peace. He goes, no, forget it. I'm staying right where I'm at. Leave me alone. Everything's fine right now. I'm in my mother's stomach. It's very comfortable. I don't need this. And God takes the Jews, who he calls Bni Bechori Yisrael Asher Ahavta, his oldest child that he loves more than everybody else, and says, you're going to be scattered in the world of Bagoyim, and when you're amongst the nations, I am Lo Targia, you'll never have peace. There'll be no calm, and you'll always be anxious. A Jew never knows when he's going to have to move. There was a great rabbi who I had to marry until I was 13 or so when he passed away, maybe a little younger. His name was Rabbi Mordechai Schwab, a man who saw the Chafetz Chaim, spent Shabbat by him. That changed his life. And Mordechai Schwab testified about himself from the day he saw the Chavetz Chaim, and his entire life from that day on, he never heard Lashon Hara or spoke Lashon Hara. Halavai Anas for 5 minutes once a week. That would be a big accomplishment. His entire life, just from seeing the Chavetz Chaim, that was enough to influence him to never hear Lashon Hara. Tzaddik Yisod Olam. So I remember clearly Rabbi Schwab once asking my father if the kids all had passports. And this I don't say to scare anybody. I say this is a psak halacha from a Gadol Torah that nobody disagrees with. It's not scary, it's just factual. My father, I don't remember what he answered him exactly, but he said like a half a yes. He says, go check right now. And when a Gadol tells you to do something, you don't ask questions. So he went to check. So we all had, but some were expired, because kids' passports expire every 5 years versus 10, so. And he said, today, before Mincha, go get the new passports. It's not such an emergency. We weren't traveling anywhere until Passover. We used to go to Israel for Passover. But there was still a few months to that. And then Rabbi Schwab told him like this. The Chavetz Chaim told me, this is what he said from the Chavetz Chaim, that being that Jews are in exile, a Jew never knows when he's going to have to get up and go somewhere else. And that's why, al pi halacha, it's an obligation for every Jew in every situation in life to always have his documents arranged. Then he looks at my father and he tells him I was a child, but I still remember it so clearly. He says, and we're definitely not smarter than the Chavetz Chaim. Where did the Chavetz Chaim get it from? I don't know. He didn't say where he got it from. But I'm assuming from this pasuk. Ubagoyim lo tivtza manoach. If you'll never find peace, people that are unpeaceful, they're always wandering. That's why Jews are titled the Wandering Jew. That's what it is. We don't find peace in one place. We go from one place to another place. That's just the way it is. And down to the most recent mass tragedy, the Holocaust, which is the easiest to relate to because it was closest to us in history, even though it wasn't the largest historic tragedy for the Jewish nation, that we see a nation that did nothing but benefit from us, the Europeans, at the time. We ran their banking system, we ran their cultural systems, their education systems, and everything else. One day turned their backs on us and decided to kill us. Interestingly enough, there was an article written, I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was 2002 maybe sometime, by a gentleman named Sebastian Villa Rodriguez. He's a Spanish professor. And I'm going to actually quote to you his article word for word, because I think there's a very strong message behind what he writes. It's not that long, don't worry, just a couple of paragraphs. He writes, I walked down the streets in Barcelona and suddenly discovered a terrible truth. What the terrible truth that he discovered in Barcelona was. Europe died in Auschwitz. We killed 6 million Jews and replaced them with 20 million Muslims. By now it's much more. In Auschwitz, we burnt a culture of thought, creativity, and talent. We destroyed the chosen people, truly chosen, because they produced great and wonderful people who changed the world. This is what he's writing about a Jew. The contribution of this people is felt in all areas of life: science, art, international trade, and above all, as the conscience of the world. These are the people that we burnt. And then he continues to write, and under the pretense of tolerance, and because we wanted to prove to ourselves that we were cured of the disease of racism, we opened our gates to 20 million Muslims, who brought us stupidity and ignorance, religious extremism and lack of tolerance, crime and poverty due to an unwillingness to work, and support their families with pride. They have turned our beautiful Spanish cities into third world, drowning in filth and crime. Shut up in the apartments, they receive free goods and services from the government. They plan the murder and destruction of their naive hosts. This is what a Spanish professor is writing about the European mentality towards the Muslim country. This is not a rabbi saying this. how much truth is there to this, especially those of us who travel can feel it on a daily basis. And thus in our misery, we exchange culture for fanatical hatred, creative skill for destructive skill, intelligence for backwardsness and superstition. It's very literal. We have exchanged the pursuit of peace of the Jews of Europe and their talent for hoping for a better future for their children, their determined clinging to life because life is holy, for those who pursue death, for people consumed by the desire for death for themselves and for others, for our children and for theirs. What they call shaheeds. That's my commentary. What a terrible mistake was made by a miserable Europe. How true. He wrote 20 million. The number is drastically higher since Merkel's wonderful idea of destroying Germany with Syrian refugees and other fools' ideas of doing the same. Today when you land in the Frankfurt airport and try to get a taxi, it's hard to find somebody who speaks German. They all speak Arabic. And those are just the Turkish Muslims there. Forget about all the other ones. Destroyed the economy, took a country that was prosperous and successful at the point, all over some sort of political correctness. Why am I quoting this article? Besides for its common sense, and sometimes common sense unfortunately is not common and it's important to hear, we see an interesting thing that's going on. This exile of Edom, this Western civilization, which the Gemara says is going to be the final exile because it's lo nitgala kitzam, is now mixing with a Muslim culture. Some by choice, some against choice, but one way or the other, that's what's happening. And even when you live in a Western place, like us here in New York, you are directly influenced on a daily basis by factors that make a difference in the way your life is run that are Muslim related. Bnei Yishmael, our first cousins, by the way. Avraham Avinu had 2 sons, right? They're our first cousins. When I walked into the synagogue tonight, I'm happy they do the right thing to keep safety, but at the same time, my stomach turned upside down, that we got to a point that we have to leave our own synagogues locked with codes for people to get in New York. If somebody would have told me that 25 years ago, what is it? Are you insane? Are you crazy? The synagogue is going to invest some insane fortune of money in the next few weeks to convert the entire building into bulletproof and bomb-proof. Did you ever think that a synagogue over here in New York is going to have to be bulletproof and bomb-proof? That we're going to think twice before we walk into our own houses of worship? That we're going to need security and police officers outside our own doors? Not that Israel's any better, but Israel's like that from day one, so they got used to it, and they're trained for it. We're not used to it, and we're not trained for it. It's a culture shock. When kids suddenly don't have school one day because there's a threat against the school, who would have thought days like that would come? We heard in public schools people doing mass shootings, which are tragic and terrible, but yeshivas should think twice on whether we could or can't have school today due to the security climate of that day. And I chose to speak about this subject tonight, even though maybe it should have been spoken about long ago, because I myself, as much as I thought I was aware of what's going on in the Jewish community as a result of being on the board of many different organizations and things, or part of in one way or the other, and a big influencer, I didn't realize how this seeps down into everybody. And this is not only a Muslim issue anymore. And what made me realize it was a minor incident, which thank God didn't affect me physically, but it definitely affected my way of thinking. I was in Chicago with my family on Sunday. And Sunday evening, I was flying back from Chicago to New York. And in a great mood, it was for a celebration, a family celebration, and everything was as happy as could be and as perfect as could be. And I was in the airport. I had already passed TSA. I was walking to the gate to board my flight. Life's as beautiful as could be. And suddenly, I get punched. The guy was aiming my face. Hashem likes me, so he made a miss, so he hit me over here instead. And it wasn't a light one, trust me. I still have a mark. And it wasn't a Muslim. And it wasn't even a minority. It was a white guy holding a baby boy in his arm, meaning he was willing to risk his own child. If he would have lost balance, I would have socked him back, just for the sake. Now, innocently, instinctively, I didn't respond, even though I probably could have. Don't underestimate my demeanor. Because I thought, I didn't realize it was a punch. It was all so sudden. But he didn't even care to run away. He turned around, looked me and my kid in the face, and I can't repeat the words that he said, but he said, "You blank, blank, blank Jew," and then ran off. He is so lucky that our family doesn't like drama, because otherwise I would have had him arrested and put on the headline of every news, and probably with our political ties kept him in prison for a while. But we just don't like drama, and we'd rather just get on our plane and go home. But the whole flight home, that's all that was on my mind. It wasn't fear. I'm not scared. Thank God I've been blessed. I'm fearless. When you're 17 years old serving in the IDF and see your friends die in front of your eyes, there's not much that can faze you after that. On my 17th birthday, I was picking up body parts in Machne Yehuda Shuk after a suicide bombing. There's not a whole lot that phases you after seeing that in your life. But I was shocked to see how this sickness seeped into the mainstream American culture. How you can be going about your own way, doing your own thing, not bothering anybody, not interacting with. If I did business with somebody and things went bad and he lost money with me and he hates me, I kind of understand it. I may hate him too. But I don't know the guy. Never seen him before. Did an airport. How stupid can you be? There's cameras everywhere. You'll get caught in 12 seconds. An ingrained hate. Zu malchut edom. That's the final exile. But that hate didn't come from them. It seeped in from this malchut Yishmael, from this Muslim attitude towards Jews, that later on, because we accepted them in the name of being politically correct and not racist and whatever else, created a monster that fueled hate amongst everybody. Chazal saw all this happening. And by the way, again, I want to stress, I'm not here to scare anybody. I don't think life's scary. I think life's beautiful. I didn't change one thing in my ways. I walk the streets freely everywhere with a lot of pride and feel no need to cover up for being Jewish. If anything, on the contrary, I make it a point to show more of my Judaism today than everywhere else. Every business meeting that I walk into today, I begin and say, "Hi, my name is," and I introduce myself as a young Jewish kid from Jersey. Because I think that's the only response. That, yeah, I'm proud to be who I am, and you're not going to make me have any less pride in who I am, no matter what. But at the same time, Chazal predicted the problem and also gave the solution, and predicted it down to the T. I gave general ideas until now about 4 exiles and very general concepts. But Chazal got into the nitty-gritty details of the problem and also gave the solution. Now, obviously, it's going to take a lot of time. Most of it won't be able to be done tonight. But in the few minutes that we may have left, we can at least raise some of the questions that have to be asked. And then maybe next week or something, give some answers. Currently, in Israel, what probably we would consider our number one problem, even though we say it's Iran, the Israelis can wipe the whole Iran out in less than 90 seconds, literally. So that's, we make that our greatest problem because we want to avoid having to do that, but it's actually the Palestinians that live amongst us, because you can't fight your neighbors. Door-to-door combat is where the greatest loss of life is. War, when it's far away, is a very safe thing to do, because you can fight from the air, you don't even have to put boots on the ground. These people call themselves Palestinians when it's a comical thing. Historically, do you know any nation called Palestine? Or Palestinians? I don't. In the Torah, there was mention of a nation that was called Plishtim, that were wiped out, that didn't exist for over 1,700 years. And these people call themselves Palestinians, with somewhat of a justification in their mind of saying that they're the owners of the land that they call Palestine, and that's their way of identifying. But they have no culture, they have no history. They're just a bunch of scattered, miserable people that came to one place as a result of whatever interests they have. And they became our headache in Israel on a daily basis. If Chazal say that our final exile is going to be a dome, how did the Ishmaelim come in? Where did these Palestinians come from? It's bad enough what we had to deal with in World War II with their dome. Well, we needed this headache now with the dome. For what? Not only that, they infiltrated our systems. We have 14 Muslim Knesset members in Israel today. We have Muslim judges in Israel. Could you believe that a Jewish boy would stand in front of a potential terrorist as a judge? All in the name of democracy, pluralism, and liberalism. Insanity. That's what I call it. I think it's a severe psychiatric condition, that's all it is. I know people say that's so racial, how can you say that, blah, 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 blah. I just tell them, I agree with you, it's extremely racial, it's not nice and everything. But, I don't know. I lived in Israel for only 6 years, and many buses blew up during those 6 years, and none of them were done by Western people. It was all done by Muslims. So I didn't say anything. It's just coincidental. 9/11 coincidentally was also done by Muslims. And many other terror attacks around the world coincidentally were done by Muslims. It's all a coincidence. Of course, they're amazing people and everything, but coincidentally, they're the ones who produce terror everywhere. Coincidentally, they're the ones who teach in their schools to die in the name of jihad. Coincidentally, they're the ones who give women no rights, have no respect for women. It's all coincidentally, of course, they're the best. But these are the facts coincidentally. So if we want to word it that way, we can call it that way. And then it's not Islamophobia, it's okay. Right? At that point, it's a coincidence. Besides, I want to know these Palestinians, these wonderful, wonderful people, as the Europeans call them, that they send them billions of dollars. What contribution did they make to the world in the past 70 years? Do any of you know any invention that Palestinians contributed to the world that made a difference to the world? It's quiet in the room, huh? Nobody knows anything? One! Just one! 2, 3, 4, 5, something. Do you know any? Something that bettered your quality of life. Today, which Palestinian patent did you use? You don't have any, huh? Because there are none. We created many patents as a result of the Palestinians. All our anti-terror warfare. So then, some idiots will throw back, so what did the Israelis create? That's the stupidest thing in the world to say. I was in an Ivy League school a little while ago speaking, and, or I don't know, it's called Ivy League, but whatever, yeah. Everybody calls themselves Ivy League today, right? And one of the kids threw back at me, and what did the Israelis contribute to the world? I was like, do you really want to dig yourself that trap? Are you that dumb? How'd you even get into school? Why'd they accept you if that's what you're asking? I was like, let's start. And I'm not going to go through all of them because we'll be here forever and ever. But in 1917, they first started the idea of what today we call a cell phone. Yeah, believe it or not, over 100 years that this thing has been in progress. The first viable cell phone in 1973 was actually a 2-kilogram device that was developed by Motorola. The research and development department that they outsourced the research and development for that device was an Israeli company. You don't like Israel, you want to boycott us? Give us back your cell phones. There is a technology that's about to change the face of the medical world. Because, phones, all right, we can live without. But it's along the lines of a phone. It's actually called something that's similar to a phone. It's called a sniff phone. The Israelis developed a technology that they're in the process of perfecting, that they can take a device, place it outside your body, it'll smell the odor of your sweat, and by that detect if you have cancer and a long list of other illnesses. Without any invasive procedures, body scans, or anything else. Otherwise known as in a few years, every single person will be able to better his quality of life 1,000,000 times over and will be able to prolong life by years because of an Israeli medical patent. Paraplegics weren't able to walk until a wonderful Israeli company called Rewalk came up with a robotic technology that allows some paraplegics that can afford it and is made for them to be able to get their mobility back. I'm sure this you saw in the news a lot lately. There's a company in Israel called PillCam. Instead of going through endoscopies and colonoscopies and a lot of other procedures like that, they got a little capsule that has a camera and a guided and a guided magnetic thing in it that you swallow, just like you swallow a vitamin. And the doctor, through his computer, guides it to where it has to go. It takes all the pictures and scans of what's needed to see on the inside of your body. And an hour later, when you use the restroom, it's all over. No anesthesia, no invasive procedures, no medical risks. You don't even have to go to the hospital. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. These are just like little examples of things that we've been doing while they've been blowing up buses. The flexible stent, which is used all day, every day in every hospital around the world, and has saved millions and millions and millions of lives, is an Israeli patent. It was made by an Israeli company. Next time somebody who wants to boycott Israel has a heart attack, maybe we shouldn't give him a stent. He doesn't want it, he wants to boycott Israel. Why would he have Israel built into his heart? That would be pretty silly. The greatest war that we're scared of today, believe it or not, is not a physical war. It's a technological war. Recently there was a news press by the American government saying that the Iranians try to hack just one state alone's government systems over 70 million times in the past year. I don't know how that's physically possible at all, but my knowledge of technology is extremely limited. What do we do to prevent technological attacks? If North Korea and all his lunatics there decided to launch, God forbid should never happen, some nuclear warhead at somewhere or the other, it'll be a mass tragedy. But it'll affect that area, it'll scare the world for a little bit, they'll fight back, and that's where it's going to end. Imagine, God forbid, one of these lunatic terrorists hacked the US banking system. The whole world not only goes into instant chaos, but goes into instant war, which will make World War II look like a comedy. God forbid that I'm not downplaying World War II in any way. Don't just take that wrong. And what's preventing that? Cybersecurity, right? One of the greatest industries to be in. Many billionaires made all their fortunes in cybersecurity. You know who invented the first firewall software in the world? And who is still reaping royalties on all firewall softwares in the world that work on that coding? An Israeli company. So maybe before you use your firewall, you should think if you love Israel and Jews or not. And we can go on and on and on and on and on, but I'm going to use examples that that people relate to. Who was the inventor of the first USB? Did you use a USB today? I did. I think all of us do. An Israeli company. A few young Jewish kids. You didn't know this stuff, huh? The way we irrigate all our agriculture today in sophisticated countries, I'm not talking about third world countries, in the United States, in Europe, and many others, is an agricultural system. You can find this on YouTube, the video of it. It's actually cool to watch. That's called nitafim. That means when you ate a cucumber this morning, the odds are the way it grew was through an Israeli patent. Why am I saying this? I'm not here to show off Israel's great things, which they have phenomenal things, and we can go on forever, probably. The thing that is the future of safety on the roads, Mobileye, it's a company that just sold less than a year ago for some crazy amount of money. It's an Israeli company. And it goes on and on and on. And that's just Israeli. And then if you want to start listing Jewish, it's pretty much, you could just say one word, everything. Now, not literally everything, but almost. Anything substantial somehow has a Jewish name tacked to it in one way or the other. It's kind of amazing. So if that's the case, I have a very technical question. They contributed nothing to the world. We contributed everything to the world. The world benefits nothing from them. The world benefits everything from us. And the world is fighting us and sticking up for them. How does that make sense? When CNN broadcasts their poison all day long against Jews in Israel, they're using Israeli technology to do so. Isn't that hypocritical? Isn't that insane, absurd? Here you have a quote-unquote Western TV channel fighting the war of the Muslims, the Bnei Ishmael, Edom fighting the war of the Bnei Ishmael, against the Jews using the Jewish ammunition. These things don't make sense. If they don't make sense, there has to be a deeper meaning. There has to be something behind it. So let's just raise a few questions and then, God willing, we'll continue next week. Why suddenly did the Muslims become the big issue of the world in the past 40 years? Chazal, the way we explained it, at least at the beginnings, said that Edom is going to be the Jewish issue, not Ishmael. You have to understand that. Where did they get this name Palestinians from? Why do they call themselves after the nation of the Plishti, which there's no connection whatsoever historically between the Palestinians today and the Plishtim back in the times of Chazal, other than trying to take a title of a name of a land that the Romans called it. How do we explain that a nation that was almost gone suddenly reignites itself and becomes the discussion of the world almost on a daily basis? And now, I want to make one more observation. Us as Sephardic Jews know this better than everybody. We always lived with the Muslims. My grandparents lived in Syria. Your grandparents probably lived in some other Muslim country. And believe it or not, we had good lives there. At least up to a point. In Morocco until today, Jews have the most amazing life. The king loves Jews, protects them beyond protection, does anything in the world for them. That's the way it is. For political reasons, he can't have official ties with Israel, but the king of Morocco is a very accessible person. If you ever want to meet him, you just go to Bell Harbor shops in Florida. He likes shopping there. He's there very frequently. If he knows you're Jewish, he'll just walk over to you to say hello. That's the type of guy he is. I know, he did it to me. And not because he knew who I was. He's just a friendly guy. He paid for synagogues in Florida, and he's just like that. Historically, we've gotten along pretty well. In Iraq, today you say the word Iraq, it sounds like a death trap, but Jews lived in Iraq and were very successful. When Ishai gave speeches on Shabbat in Iraq, how physically it's possible to speak to such large crowds without a microphone, I don't know, but that he did it. Hashem gave him special strength. And he had at least 1,000 people in the speech after Mincha before Sudas Shlishit every Shabbat, in public on the streets. And the rulers of these Muslim countries used to worship these rabbis. Every time they had a problem, they went running to these rabbis. Now, I'm not saying it was always great. There were times that we had some conflict. But when we compare that to the conflict we had with the Western world, like World War II, like the Crusades, like the Spanish Inquisition, right? Jews were living in Spain when the Muslims were still in power, and we had a very good life there. And then when the Christians came in, tragedy struck. So historically, we've overall done pretty well with them. And suddenly things changed. Now, number one, neither one loves us or is nice to us, but at least what it seems like on a shallow level, on the surface, it's the Muslims who are fighting us a lot more than the others. And it's a transition of the last 40 years or so, plus minus. So what changed? Why did it change? If it changed, that means Hashem made it change. And there has to be a reason. And if there's a reason, maybe we can understand how we're supposed to deal with it and what we can do to help ourselves. So it's a very interesting thing, and with this I end, because I'm out of time by a lot. There's a sefer called Etz Hadat Tov, that was written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, the great Kabbalist Rabbi Chaim Vital, Zecher Tzadik Livracha Zchuto Yagin Aleinu. Rabbi Chaim Vital writes in Parashat Vayishlach on the pasuk Vayitzer lo, Ubau alav tzarot kufot. The Jews will have frequent troubles, tragedies. V'nityareh, and they get scared. Pen yichlu banav chas v'shalom. Maybe their children will be wiped out, God forbid. Begalut Edom hakasha, in the hard exile of Edom. V'lachen, and therefore, listen to these words, and this might be the beginning of the answers. What did Yaakov Avinu do when Esav was coming towards him, and he had his kids and his wives, and he was worried that they'll be wiped out? So we gave a speech about it. He split them, right? What does the pasuk say? Vayichatz et ha'am asher ito. He split the nation at a distance of a day apart that were with him. Comes up Chaim Vital and writes, Hem zaro, those are his children. V'chetziam, Yaakov Avinu then already did something that should happen at the end of exile. Half the Jews, halchu begalut Yishmael, are going to go in the exile of the Muslims. V'chetziam nisharu begalut Edom, and half the Jewish world will stay in the exile of the Western civilization. Hem inyan chalom Nebuchadnezzar, and he explains it. That's already a more Kabbalistic concept. He proves it from another place, this idea Yaakov Avinu already then prayed and caused, because of the fear of Jews being wiped out, that let's split the Jews up, so if they get hurt in one place, at least we have others in another place. If all the Jews lived in Nazi Germany during 1939 to 45, we'll leave that as a blank, because none of us know what would have been. But millions of Jews, 2/3 of the Jewish nation, were saved because they weren't in that place. That was Yaakov Avinu's work years before, splitting the Jews. But he split the Jews, from Chaim Vital writes very specific words, not just in geographical areas, but under exile is no way out of, but in the choice of exile. He said some Jews will be under the exile of Edom, and others will be under the exile of Ishmael. And Reb Chaim Vital explains it in much greater detail, and he says there'll be a situation in the Jewish nation, it's amazing how it's like a prophecy that he predicted years before it happened, that in the lands of Edom they're going to wipe out the Jews, and the Machaneh HaNishar, his words are, the camp that will stay, meaning the Jews that will survive, are going to be Be'altzot Ishmael, will be in the Muslim countries. Exactly what happened during World War II. Ki ha'Ishmaelim, and then he makes an analogy, listen to this. Ki ha'Ishmaelim einam rodfim achar hadat. The Muslims don't want to fight the Jewish faith. They have nothing against the Jewish faith. But rak achar hagezel ve'hashochad. They want to be bribed and they want to steal the Jewish money. Jealousy, envy of our money. Right? They don't care if we're Jewish. You want to practice Judaism? That doesn't bother them. What bothers them is our wealth, and they want to steal our money, or they want us to bribe them before. And he writes, "Kanodna b'zmanenu zeh," and that's already known now. Lachen limdu Yaakov lezaro, and that's why Yaakov Avinu taught his children. She'arbe mo'al u'matan v'shochadot lekol elu ha'umot. They should give gifts and bribery to all these nations. And through that, they will protect themselves a little bit from the suffering that they'll have from them. Mashiach Reb Chaim Vital writes, the Edomim, the Western people, they do have an issue with our religion. That's very simple. Why? Because, I don't want to say his name in shul, but the one who I nicknamed J.C. Penney, he was a yeshiva boy that was thrown out of yeshiva. So they have an issue with us. Because the one that they call whatever, the garbage can, is an ex-yeshiva boy. The other guys, they admit themselves that Muhammad was just a moron and whatever, didn't know how to read, was illiterate, was stupid, and everything else. And they make sure to stick in his ways very strongly. God forbid that they have an education other than killing people. So they don't have an issue with our religion. On a religious level, we did nothing wrong to them. Just the opposite. We're their cousins. We have a similar culture. We both believe in God. It's fine. That they can get along with. They're just money hungry. They're bloodsuckers. They want control, power. And they see the Jews have it. That they can't tolerate seeing. Boom, they fight with you. And from here we can establish a rule. This might, by the way, might be the source of anti-Semitism. We unfortunately didn't have enough time to get to Iran specifically this week. So next week maybe we'll get to Iran specifically. Because Iran's a very interesting subject. Chazal predicted word for word everything. It's unreal. But from here we learn a very common rule in life. When you do good to the world and the other doesn't, when you do no harm to the world and the other does, when you live by an ethical code and the other doesn't, the other has one of two choices: either to become you or to kill you. Because to live with that in your face, no human is capable of. That is the... When the world looks at every product that they use, at every big financial institution that they see, at every success story in the world, and sees Jew, 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 and today it's a lot more than that. It's Israel, 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 Israel. And you go to Barcelona to the technology show and see that 48% of the patents of 2019 are Israeli startup companies, and that Israel is the country that has the largest amount of successful startups per capita in the world, and the whole country is around for 73 years. You have one of two choices: either to become like them or to kill them, because you won't be able to live constantly feeling like a second-class person and be in envy of the one who's more successful for you. We never were persecuted or died because we were bad. Because historically, Jews have never done a bad thing in the world. The only reason why we're persecuted is because we're good. And on that, we tell God, Ki alecha horagnu kol hayom. On you, God, on your values, that's the reason why they come after us. And we still will not concede our values. And we still will not slow down our success. And we still will walk the streets with pride of who we are and what we are. Because we know that the same God who caused it did it for a reason, which we will explain, and also gave the solutions, which God will explain at maybe 3 classes down the line. Hashem should help. We should have a wonderful, happy Shabbat, and we should walk the streets with pride and fearless, and nobody's killing on us, and everything's fine. And if some jerk punches you like some jerk punched me this week, big deal, take it with pride. We're men for a reason. I don't mean men as in the gender, meaning we're adults for a reason. And not everything needs something, and not everything needs a response. And by the way, my humble opinion, and I was so happy to hear that a great rabbi that I have a lot of respect for in Muncie, Rabbi Schlesinger, gave a speech about this week, or last week. I got it this week, so I don't know when he gave it, but in the past 2 weeks. For us to go onto TV and press conferences and this and that, not only is it not going to help the situation, it's going to make the situation drastically worse, because the whole reason why they hate us in the first place is because we're in their face. And the more we stay out of their face, the better it'll be. And if maybe we cover up for some of our wealth and our buildings and our things and whatever, that might help the situation a lot too. It's not coincidentally that places like Jersey City had attacks. You know, a bunch of young Jewish kids came in and pretty much brought up the whole town. And that happens place after place. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. We're good businessmen and we should do it. But you can do the same thing and keep a low profile. It doesn't have to be flaunting your Jewish name everywhere. I told some Hasidic guys, but they didn't like this, that maybe they should start taking down their Shiloh pictures from the outside of all their buildings. I didn't mean it literally. I just meant the idea. Like, you don't have to flaunt that it's Hasidic owned. It's okay. You know? Today, everything's under a company name. Why does it have to be in everybody else's faces? And I spent the last weekend with Rabbi Ari Ben Shushan, who now lives in LA, and when we were talking, he said that he made one observation in New York versus LA that he needs an explanation for, and he grew up here, so I don't know what took him so long to make that observation. He said, why is it in New York that the Jews feel a need to build houses that are such eyesores, that take everybo's eyes out? So in Los Angeles, we have very many wealthy Jews. Maybe a lot of them are a lot wealthier than us. And they don't do that. They live in regular, normal, simple homes. And they're living in the culture of the fancy homes. Of course your neighbor's going to hate you if he's earning $40,000 a year, and in his eyes you never go to work because in the morning you're at shul, and in the afternoon you're at shul, and at night you're at shul, and all he sees you is playing with your kids in at shul, and you just went and built a $4 million house. I don't blame him. There's no way to deal with that jealousy. There's no way. And that we're able to pay for all this is not even our credit, it's a nace. Right? There's no way to explain how Jewish families live. We pay tuition more than Ivy League schools. We have kids, bli ayin hara, by the dozens. And we pay tuition for all of them, right? The Goyim complain that they pay a community college tuition for one school. For one kid, I mean. We have 12 kids in yeshivot paying these huge numbers. And we still live comfortably, we still have fancy houses and cars, and the numbers don't add up. It's a nest, right? Hashem makes a nest that somehow at the end of the month it works. There's no rational way. And they go to Walmart to save 42 cents on the whole shopping that they went for the week. It's a miracle. One of the greatest miracles is they don't come into our restaurants and our stores. Because then they would reveal the extent of our wealth. When they go shopping, they load a fridge up for a month for what we do for one Friday. That's not an exaggeration, it's very literal. I speak to some of my workers, they tell me what it costs them, food a week. Guys, our regular restaurants are at the same price level as their Michelin star restaurants, just to put things in perspective. It's out of control. And that's the way we're all living, because thank God we keep kosher and we're proud to pay for it. There's a miracle. This miracle doesn't have to be flaunted. Because when this miracle is flaunted, it comes with a price. And the price is, if I can't be like you, and I can't concede to being secondary to you, I'm going to hate you and kill you. That's the source of Esav Sonei Yaakov. That's the final exile that we're in. But Hashem helps us, and the same way He protected us until now, He'll protect us further. And we'll see Mashiach soon, happy and healthy, and everything will be well. Amen, amen.